Well, you guys, I was gonna come on here and do a funny intro playing one of the games from season 2 of Squid Game, but Netflix, they sort of gave me a list here. Let me put my glasses on to read this. They said, don't play any games on camera and reveal any new games. So I can only play red light, green light. Actually, they did mention red light, green light. And the game will start suddenly. What? I'm not ready, Netflix. No. Alright, let me go get ready. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're getting into my spoiler-free thoughts on Squid Game Season 2. Now, this is 3 years in the making, because if you remember, during the pandemic, Squid Game Season 1 took the world by storm. I loved it. I even rated it a 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was an excellent piece of television, and I was surprised to see a Season 2. Where do they take the story next? Well, we'll talk about a little bit of that and some of my positives and negatives, but before we get into all of that, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and yeah, all the news in between, so you don't want to miss out on exciting content as we get into the new year. Hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and drop a like if you enjoy this content, and leave a comment below and let me know. What did you think of Squid Game Season 2 when you finished watching all 7 episodes? Because they're about an hour and 20 minutes each. I need to know if you guys loved the season, if you liked it, or maybe you really didn't like it. Because there are some things in here that I really didn't like. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. In case you're wondering what Season 2 is all about, let's get into it. It is once again written and directed by Hwang Dong-hyuk, who actually is, in my opinion, one of the better showrunners and directors out there. He does a really good job with some unique source material like we saw in Season 1. And the show stars, yet again, Lee Jung-jae as Gi-hun. We have Lee Byung-hun as Jun-Ho, or the front man, Ha-joon as Jun-Ho, the detective, and some newcomers like Park Sung-hoon, who plays Hyun-Ju. I mean, there are a lot of newcomers this season, and most of them actually knock it right out of the park, but the premise itself is, well, got some familiar elements and some new storylines to follow. So without spoiling anything, Squid Game Season 2 takes place 3 years after player 456, or Gi-hun, won Squid Game. He gave up going to the United States and came back with a new resolution in his mind. Gi-hun once again dives into the mysterious survival game, starring yet another life or death game, some new participants, and a prize of 45.6 billion won. So it's like the dude said, I'm out, but I'm back in. You know, like he just wants to end these games, right? And the only way to do that is to get in it himself. So that's where our story starts, and I can't really get into a lot of details because I wasn't joking in my intro. Netflix gave me a huge list of things I cannot talk about. So without spoiling anything, let's get started with my positives for Season 2 of Squid Game. And I'll begin with this. What you guys loved about Season 1 really is present here, but I like Hwang Dong-hyuk's slight alterations to the storytelling. Instead of focusing on the viral nature of these games, which a lot of people try to recreate in real life, I mean, not to the degree of what they do in the show, of course, but, you know, like mini games and stuff, and how a bunch of people were making parody videos, you won't find that in Season 2. Instead, you find a focus now more so on the drama and the relationships between our players. I'd have to imagine that most viewers will be coming into this season thinking, which crazy game is next? But you have to settle your expectations a bit because most of the games were very tame in Season 2 compared to Season 1. Sure, it's very bleak, like there are a lot of terrible outcomes in these games, but in Season 1, I felt the games were a little bit stronger, and we'll talk a little bit about more of that later, but I will have to say that the show sort of evolves. It's less about the game itself and more so about the layers that we're peeling back with these players and their personal lives. I also thought that to counterbalance the bleakness of these games and how terrible this entire operation is, there's a lot of humor, more so than Season 1, so you're going to find yourself laughing. There's a bit of a zany attitude to this show at times, especially in Season 2, and the score, like the music itself, plays into that. So you see a lot of that lean in to the humor compared to Season 1, but again, it's really not for the faint of heart. Season 2, there are some instances where I'm like, why am I eating a spaghetti dinner right now? But the only way that this show actually succeeds is on the backs of the actors. So the acting in Season 2, again, is pretty much on point, and it starts with Lee Jung-jae as Gi-hun. He's excellent yet again. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors living. Like, this guy is so good at what he does. Every time I see his name attached to a project, I get excited. You might not have liked the Disney Plus Star Wars series, The Acolyte, but I enjoyed the heck out of his acting. And he does a really good job again. And it's funny because his character is evolving. And you start to see that, you know, he's determined and he grew a backbone. But sometimes there are things that throw him off inside of the games. I can't say anything more than that. I also like the introduction of this cat and mouse game that they're now playing between Gi-hun, and he's trying to track down Lee Jung-jae, who plays the frontman. He's trying to get his revenge, so that sort of sets up a lot of what this show dives into. But it's not just enough to worry about the A plot in Squid Game Season 2. There is a bit of a heavy emphasis, at least in the first half of this season, on the B plot, and that's led by actor Ha-joon, who plays Jun-Ho, detective from season 1. Remember, he gets on the island, and I'm sure you know what happens next, looking for his brother, and boy oh boy did he find his bro. And it really knocked his socks off. That was a pun, not a good one, but I do like that he's leading this new group of mercenaries and former thugs to try and find this island, and no one believes him except for this captain named Captain Park, I believe, who has this boat. So he's basically conjuring up a team of his own and saying, we're gonna find this island and try to stop the games too. And this is where we get a lot of the introduction to our newcomers this season, because a lot of the new cast members carry a large load and have a big bulk of screen time in season 2. And I want to start with one actor who I'm sure a lot of people will talk about, either for better or for worse, because we know how the internet is, but actor Park Sung-hoon's performance as Hyun-Ju is, in my opinion, pretty darn good this season. Now, there is controversy behind this, but I'm not going to touch on that. Y'all can Google it. But this character, Hyun-Ju, is a transgendered woman. And now, whether you're for or against, whatever your thoughts are on the matter, I feel like the show uses this character as a vehicle to once again demonstrate a lot of the lack of humanity in these games, and the fact that they can't even show love and compassion to their fellow man, or woman, of course, but you get what I'm saying. And I love the writing surrounding this character, and Hyun-Ju has an awesome moment in the last couple of episodes, and I loved it. So I don't want to say too much more than that, but I do like this performance and the writing surrounding this character. Then there's young Dong-hyuk, who plays Young-sik, and I love this son-mother relationship because Young-sik's mother, Jung-jae, who's played by Kang Ai-shim, does a really good job here. Both of those performances really complement one another. So the mother-son relationship comes into play pretty heavily throughout this entire season, but you grow to almost empathize with both sides, you know what I mean? It's so well done, and I actually really loved a lot more of the new cast versus the returning cast here, and at times I feel like they even delivered stronger performances. And then there's a very incredibly over-the-top performance by Choi Sung-hyun, who plays this rapper named Thanos. Yeah, Thanos from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, y'all know, from Marvel in general, and he's got his fingernails painted with the Infinity Stones, and this dude's so full of himself. You know that from the start, but he does embody this bully role. So you remember in season 1 we had the group of bullies, and season 2 we got bullies again. And then there's an actress that I felt did a really good job, but I wanted them to almost focus more so on her, and this is actress Yuri. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but she plays Jun-Ho, and this is a player who is a pregnant woman. So that, again, a lot of these elements just sort of converge at a certain point. I want to say something else and I can't, but seriously, there's so much convergence with these storylines, and for the most part, I do feel like they blend together pretty well. And even though the games themselves in season 1 were stronger, I do feel like, thanks to the focus on our relationships between our characters, it provides a lot of tension for the games we do get in season 2. Now, I cannot name the games or describe them. I wasn't kidding about that in my intro, but it is worth noting that because of the time spent inside of the players' quarters, it makes the games better, even though the games themselves are not on their own better than season 1. I was also very happy with the musical composition by Jung-jae because at times it reminded me of these pulse-pounding scores we get from composers like Ludwig Göransson in Tenet. Pay attention for that during a certain game. Gosh, I hope somebody comes in the comments and says, oh yeah, I get it. I know what instrumentation you're talking about. There's some parallels there, but it was really well done. So again, the games weren't awful. There was just more tension, I feel like, in season 1, but season 2, there were moments where I thought, oh boy, I'm locked in. And then on a technical front, I did notice that the sound design and the cinematography itself, for the most part, worked for me. There were only a few instances where I thought some zoom-ins looked odd and out of place and almost a little too like cable TV-ish. It just didn't feel natural to me, but a lot of that experimentation happens in the first half of season 2, and in season 2's second half, in my opinion, the cinematography is much better. I will say though, there needs to be a photosensitivity warning for one of the episodes towards the end. I believe it's episode 6 or 7, but yeah, just be on the lookout for that because it is a little intense. However, it's a very intense moment, so maybe that was the idea. But I mean, gosh, there were so many immersive moments in this season, so I do gotta credit the technical aspects because it just helps everything blend together very well. So we've got a good ensemble of actors and actresses. Some of the technical elements are really good, and I will say I do like some of the approaches to these newcomers. But what doesn't work about season 2? I guess this is a good time to get into my negatives. And right at the top is the sorest thumb that is going to stick out for this season. I can't get into too much detail, maybe it's a video for another day, but the ending to season 2 of Squid Game is absolutely awful. In my opinion, it sort of unravels everything we've built up to ahead of the final moments. And again, I can't say too much, but up until episode 7, I actually found that the season was finding its groove episode by episode. But then in the last 15 minutes, I started to think, well, hold on, we don't have much time left. Where are they going to go with this story? And unfortunately, it leaves us on a very big cliffhanger. But it's not one of those cliffhangers that makes you want a season 3. Instead, they just wrote it because they maybe assumed they were getting a season 3. So we have a lot of storylines left unresolved in the worst way possible. There's a very awkward ending to most episodes, but for the season finale, it was probably the most awkward of all. I do think that this season needed at least 1 or 2 more episodes because in season 1 we got 9 episodes, and that felt good. In season 2, it almost feels like we could have done with another episode here because things got cut off maybe, and it was a very abrupt ending, and I did not like it. There's like a mid-credits scene, I guess, that's supposed to maybe make viewers feel better, but no, it didn't work for me, and unfortunately, I do think that the ending to season 2 of Squid Game almost destroys the entire season. There are also stretches of time where I feel like B-plots felt useless. And I know I just got done mentioning some of these storylines outside of the A-plot are good, but I loved exploring these characters, and they don't go past the surface level too often. Like, the character of Jun-Ho and his mission to finding the island is cool, but why give it so much prominence in the first few episodes only to then leave it, and then try to come back to it, and then leave us hanging again? Just felt like it was a popcorn effect. I almost wanted a more concrete story here for Jun-Ho, and sadly they waste the potential of other characters like Woo Seok, who I believe is played by Oh Dal-soo. Woo Seok is a cool character here. I do think it works well in the context of this storyline, but again, they don't do much with it. It just feels like you're going in circles again and again. So I just don't know why the writing failed in that department. It almost feels like it was less tight compared to season 1. There's also another story that this season tries to focus on, and it does center around an actress named Park Yu-young who plays this new character, Noelle. Funny that the character is No-E-U-L, kind of sounds like Noel to me, and we are celebrating Christmas soon, so again, that's total coincidence, but this felt surface level, and gosh, they give you stuff and then they leave you with it, and then that's it. We needed more of a focus, I think, especially in this department. You introduce a character, and I guess you hope to get a season 3 and see more, but why? Just give us another episode or 2. I think that would have helped resolve a lot of the issues I had in the writing department. And now I do want to talk more so about the games themselves and why they're inherently worse than season 1. Most of the games here, with the exception of one, are pretty bad to me on their own. I mean, the drama surrounding it is pretty good, but the games themselves are just not effective to me, and not as intense as season 1, and you have instances where you're like, am I even going to remember this game, or am I going to remember the actions of the players themselves more than the game? That's where the difference lies in season 1. So if you're coming into this thinking, yeah, heck yeah, more games that I'm going to talk about and make TikToks about, it's probably not going to happen. And then there are certain sequences for me that felt like they could have been chopped down tremendously to give us more time to maybe make a better ending to season 2. And I think that really is in the voting sequences. So, of course, they got to vote circle for continue the game or X to not continue the game. These voting sequences are not new to us, of course, but they dominate so many episodes for so long this season. I mean, there's one episode where it takes up half the episode. Like, that's like 30 to 35 minutes of just watching people vote. I get it. It's trying to build up tension and focus again on the relationships of these players and the civil war that's happening within the players' quarters, but I just don't think it's effective enough. You can't spend that much time and then leave us with what we got in the season 2 finale that disappointed me heavily because there wasn't enough time to be spent here. Just, you have to sort of manage time better, I think, in shows like this, especially when you're not being given as many episodes. You get 7 episodes this season versus 9 in the first season. Might not sound like a huge difference, but it is. So overall, you guys, what do I really think about season 2? Gosh, I will say it's a little bit of a disappointment. And that's not to say it's a bad season of television. I mean, of course, every good to great show has a season that maybe is a drop off from its predecessor. But man, the bar was set so high with season 1 that season 2, it doesn't even get close to it. Of course, there are some performances that I feel like shine even brighter sometimes versus season 1, but there's not enough there for me to say that this is yet another 4.5 out of 5 or even 4-star season compared to what we got in season 1. So if I even had to rate season 2 of Squid Game, I'd give it like a 3.5 out of 5. There are some instances, again, that are great takeaways. They will have you focused and locked in. But by the time you reach the end of this season, you question yourself. Was it worth the time I spent? Is it worth the 7.5 hours? I don't know, guys, because that's the worst thing about season finales. If it makes you question whether it was worth watching all the way through, because you get left on such a weird note. And I walked away from season 2 thinking, are you serious? And those are bad endings. Those are just really bad endings to any television series or movie. So I don't like when I walk away from cliffhangers like that. Not much got me too excited for a season 3, but you have to imagine they're probably going to greenlight one, because even the writer and director said, I've got plans for season 3. This was maybe years ago. So it's probably going to happen, guys. But until it does, we're left with what we got. And I didn't love it, didn't hate it. But I also thought it was maybe just very much in the middle. So Squid Game season 2, it is a disappointment compared to season 1. There are some good moments. I do recommend it if you're a fan, but if maybe you're sort of on the fence, you don't have to binge watch this weekend 1. You can kind of watch it on your own time. So yeah, Squid Game season 2, I wanted to love it, guys, but I just didn't. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And which episode or new character is your favorite? Also, go ahead and hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers. And guys, by the time I'm recording this, it's almost Christmas. It's probably Christmas when you're watching it. So Merry Christmas to you guys. I love this season so much. And we're almost into the new year. So if I don't see you before the new year, Happy New Year's. And I hope you enjoy it. God bless you and your family. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll catch you at the next screening. Not again. We were done with red light, green light. What's next?